There is inspiration everywhere.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Sharon Sutton.
Welcome to episode 98 of Island Influencers. Today we have a wonderful guest, Lyle Krause, a man with a fascinating journey from South Africa to the Isle of Man. Lyle arrived on our shores back in 2018, and he and his wife have really thrown themselves into our island community. Lyle, a devoted father of two, is also an accomplished account and relationship manager. His unwavering drive, motivation and ambition for whatever he puts his mind to is evident. During our conversation, you'll hear Lyle's optimism for the boundless opportunities that await young professionals and families here on the Isle of Man. We'll also explore a shining example of Lyle's natural entrepreneurial spirit and innovative thinking, the KLEvR Desk. He really does think outside of the box. Lyle is an outdoor enthusiast, from rugby and water polo, where he once represented South Africa in his youth, to golf and mountain biking. Who knew saunas on the beach are a latest trend? Maybe that's a topic for a future episode. So here is my conversation with Lyle Krause, Global Relations Manager at Atla Fiduciaries Limited, a true island influencer who's making a remarkable impact on the Isle of Man. Welcome to the Island Influencer Studio, Lyle Krause. Thank you for coming along today and recording an episode of the podcast with me. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, delighted to be here. Thanks for your time.
No trouble. It would be wonderful if you could tell me, although I've done a bit of online stalking and reading about you, but if you could tell our listeners what brings you to the Isle of Man from clearly not locally.
Must be the accent that gave it away.
Would you tell us all about you, please, and where you come from?
Absolutely. So, probably a starting point of why we're on the Isle of Man, or how we ended up on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, well, so where you grew up, where you were born,
yes,
what your parents did, that sort of thing, where you went to school.
Sure. So I was born and bred in Durban, South Africa, and I went to school at a small village school called Kloof before going on to a big boys' school called Maritzburg College, which is quite a sporty school in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa.
Yeah, gosh.
My dad's a professional land surveyor. My mum was a teacher, but she mostly looked after myself and my brothers.
Yeah, so what sort of sports did you do? Rugby, I guess.
Yeah, rugby, water polo, but I mean, if you name it, we did it all.
Outdoor pools, water polo.
Yeah, all outdoors.
Yeah, like we just got here.
In the winter.
Like we've got here in the Isle of Man.
Yeah,
loads of them.
I haven't seen too many water polo players in the Isle of Man, but it was a very active lifestyle, very active as kids growing up, on our bikes, rollerblades, skateboards, you name it, we did it. And then obviously that there was a big social aspect to that as well. So getting to high school and playing sports at a high level and across the country, and also representing my country at water polo level. So it was a great way to network in South Africa.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I still have that. I have contacts through playing sport across the different provinces. So we would travel around the country playing bigger schools like Pretoria Boys and Uffies, and I know there are a couple of guys on the Isle of Man from some of those bigger schools as well.
I think I know for a fact King William's College does an exchange with a school or more schools in South Africa, and there's a lad comes just over, I think, but
that's right.
It happens quite a bit. Did you have any links like that when you were?
We didn't do an exchange, but I know the schools that are involved in the exchange with King William's College. I think at the moment they do an exchange with Kersney or Hilton. There's certainly both schools have been involved. So it's great that there is that link with the Isle of Man. And I mean, as you know, a number of links with South Africa that we tend to speak about on our trips out to South Africa.
Yeah. So how did you what did you do when you left school and went to university, presumably?
Yeah, I started studying social science, but I took my rugby quite seriously and probably took my social side and playing golf quite seriously in my first couple of years out of school as well. I changed to doing a Bachelor of Business Administration degree through UNISA, which is all through correspondence.
Yeah.
I look back and it could have done focused a bit more on my studies, but I wouldn't have had the network that I have now. So, it all worked out in the end.
Oh yeah. So reading here, you took a year out in 2008 when you finished your degree off, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. So what did you do then?
I was part-time working and. But also spent 3 months in Dubai with my brother who was working out there at the time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which was very cool. So, Dubai, kind of go and live your dreams and young guys kind of living in amazing apartments, driving their Porsches and having a great time. It was...
Everyone's living there at the moment, if they're Russian anyway. Yeah,
it was... I think I need a bit more soul to my city, and Dubai didn't really have that. It was very, I think, quite materialistic, and it was different in 2008. I haven't been and spent a lot of time there recently.
Yeah.
I imagine, with the development and with the large number of people living there, it's probably quite a different place. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was still early days. A lot of expats, quite a party lifestyle, quite an active outdoor, work hard, play hard lifestyle.
Yeah.
And Actually, I can't really remember too much more about 2008, but it was...
You had a good time.
I had a good time, and
brilliant.
It was kind of just finding my feet and what next,
Yeah, okay. Well, it says here that next you had to get a grown-up job when you went back to South Africa.
That's right, yeah. So I ended up in advertising, below-the-line advertising, and in Durban, there are a number of...
So for benefit of listeners who don't know what that is, could you explain?
So at your kind of point of contact with the customer would be your below-the-line advertising, as opposed to above-the-line, which would be your radio and television and large print. And below-the-line is more... So if you go into a Tesco and you see a lint bunny stand that is a freestanding unit, we would come up with those campaigns, create the material, and then build and manufacture and distribute throughout South Africa. So
you have more than one client.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in South Africa, my big clients were the likes of Nestle and Forgood and Simba and those types of brands.
Right.
So for Nestle, we did a lot of work with the Kit Kat brand, and we celebrated their 75-year anniversary at the time, and so it was coming up with that in-store marketing at retail campaign, and then going back to the studio, coming up with a concept, presenting to the client, go back, or come up with a whole lot of ideas for stands and point of sale units for in store.
Right.
Manufacturing them and then distributing them around the country.
Okay, fascinating.
So it was interesting, and my role in that was the client liaison or client relationship role, and that's still a role that I perform today.
Yeah. Superb. And did you do anything else across those years? I've got that you were a founding member of Ignite South Africa, ignitesa.com.
Yeah, so it was kind of towards the end of my time at Hewitt & Associates, the below-the-line marketing and retail agency, that a friend of mine was doing a course at Gibbs, which is a school in Pretoria, and he came across this thing called a lap desk, which was basically a tray that kids could carry to and from school.
Right.
And they would use it as a desk to write and learn on. But it was just a surface to write on, and they printed educational messaging on top of this lap desk. And I sent a pic of a fold-up kind of promoter table that someone had manufactured in the agency that I was working with to this friend of mine, and we put two and two together that we could create a desk and chair that would be better than this lap desk.
Yeah, sure.
And a bit of context to that is that in South Africa, there are roughly 4 million kids that go to school and don't have a desk or chair to sit on, or a chair to sit on and to do their work. Gosh. So they would sit under trees, or they would sit in dilapidated type learning facilities without the infrastructure to actually concentrate and learn in a dignified way. So that kind of led into the next 3 years of my career, which was going full time on this little desk that myself and two of my friends had conceptualized and created.
Wow.
And it was called the KLEvR Desk, and we patented it, and we put some design protection over the KLEvR Desk at the time.
Yeah.
I still hold that patent, and I've got someone in South Africa who wants to license and use that patent. It's just one of those things where I've hung on to it just because I think there's value, and there'll be someone who can make it happen.
Yeah, sure.
But at the time we presented to MTN, which is a big kind of multinational telco.
Yeah.
And they operate throughout Africa and the Middle East. Very big brand in South Africa. And we sold it to them as a part of their corporate social and CSI, corporate social investment spend.
Yeah.
And but it was also sold to it was kind of marketing and CSI tied in together.
Yeah.
And we distributed 5,000 of these desks around South Africa.
Gosh,
so we
it's
got
amazing to get the raw materials together to actually manufacture them in the first place and then distribute them.
Yeah,
Gosh.
so they were all made out of the first lot were made out of corrugated cardboard, which is the same material that we're using to make these retail stands for the likes of Nestle and all the rest. And the designer John Morley, really clever, hugely intellectual guy who designed the actual KLEvR Desk and the folding mechanism. He was designing folding mechanism desks for units for the likes of KitKat, and because you've got to transport these items all over the country,
of course.
and then you've got to get them erected really quickly. So so
it's a real demonstration of thinking outside of the box, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So that was a very fulfilling time. So we would, it was stressful because it was an entrepreneurial journey. Maxed out a few credit cards at the time to cover costs, as you do. But we got a lot of smiles, and we found that these kids would mainly actually keep the desks at home. And they were incredibly proud of these little items, and the brands got a bit of visibility because you had a lot of households with 5-6 people, and seeing the brand, which was this telco brand that everyone could afford airtime and things like that.
Yeah.
But the kids got the most value, and there was educational messaging on the desktop, and
cool.
So a very cool time. And
well done. It sounds really inspiring, actually.
Yeah, it was fulfilling, definitely fulfilling, and but it's a tough sell, there's trying to get people to see that what started out as a cardboard desk, to see value in it was a trick, but the point was that we sold them cheap enough you could replace them regularly if you needed to. Sure. But they did last.
Yeah, no, wonderful. And you also I think you moved on from Hewitt & Associates, you went to the Dello Group.
So that was the company we set up to commercialize the
KLEvR Desk.
Commercialize the KLEvR Desk.
Yeah, spelled KLEvR for anyone who's looking it up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, at the time that was the in thing.
Yeah, fine. And so that brought you to ignitesa.com. So there's something else you founded. What was that about?
Yeah, so it kind of tied in with what we were doing with the KLEvR Desk. Very passionate about influencing change in South Africa. Probably we were kind of mid to late 20s, and a friend of mine, Dax Barker, had come up with this idea about a Leaders in Indaba, or some way of getting school kids together and empowering and influencing them in a positive way. Yeah. Which we then it spun out into a thing called the Future Leaders in Indaba, which became ignitesa.com, and we would run a big youth conference every year as part of Africa Day, and it was linked with the South African government. And we created this social media platform. And at the time, Twitter was this was 2008, 2009, probably 2010, around there. So these platforms were now widely in use. And we wanted this to be a niche business networking platform for young South Africans who wanted to influence and affect change. Yeah. And the whole idea was that we could positively influence youngsters by giving them access to entrepreneurial opportunities, educational opportunities. But it was essentially take successful young South Africans who are leaders in their fields, bring them into the same conference. We had kind of hundreds, maybe 1,000 youngsters there, so age between 18 and say 30. Yeah. And just expose them to where the opportunities lay. So it wasn't saying, here's your opportunity. It was like, this is how you find the opportunity. Here are a whole lot of people across industry that you can look up to as mentors. Yeah. And now you have social media to access them. The idea for the ignitesa.com, which was this, we just used a Jira platform, which was like out the box, so it wasn't like we coded the thing or created it. We were just plugging in the likes of Twitter and then trying to create a similar looking type LinkedIn platform for these young South Africans.
Was it like a private network in that case then, or could anybody access it?
Anybody could access it,
right?
But it was kind of targeted at this niche segment, this young South African looking for opportunities across. It was employment, entrepreneurship, and education.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so fine things to aim for. Yeah, and
it also gave us really great access to. There was one guy that we would get down to MC or compare the event, a guy named Vusi Tembekwayo, very influential South African.
Okay, his name again?
I'll have to send you the spelling.
Okay,
his name is Vusi Tembekwayo, and he is he went to school in Johannesburg. Difficult upbringing, I'd say. I don't want to speak to his upbringing, but I would say it's not your normal kind of standard upbringing. Yeah. Went to school in Johannesburg and became a global award-winning public speaker.
Excellent.
And now he's an influential entrepreneur in South Africa. Yeah. So very, and we had a number of people that I'm still in touch with that had just done really well and were now editors of magazines or part of incubation programs in the entrepreneurship space. We would get guys involved in shipping, just across the board.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So that was.
It's extremely rewarding thing to have created and delivered. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a great time of our lives. Although, like I say, lots of credit card debt and wangling ways of trying to keep things afloat.
We'll get to that later in the podcast, I think. Goodness. So then you went and became an account manager at was it Peyton Tupper?
Peyton Tupper. Yeah.
Peyton Tupper. Beg your pardon.
Yeah. So Peyton Tupper, another. Very well-known Durban advertising agency, also a below-the-line agency, but didn't do manufacturing. Durban is where a lot of the printing began, and I think in South Africa it was quite a lot of the printing presses started out being located in Durban because of Durban having the biggest port in South Africa.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So a lot of the spin-off industries began because of the print industry being so big in Durban. Peyton Tupper is still going. They're part of a bigger group now. Owner, managed and run. Also dealing with very big brands in the FMCG space.
FMGC.
FMCG, so your fast-moving consumer goods. Your kind of, if you think of anything like shampoo, toothpaste, chocolates,
fast-moving
confectionery,
things that people buy, staples.
Yeah, you're kind of anything you'll see at like the Tesco's and Co-ops and ShopRites.
Jargon. I thought financial services.
There are more acronyms in financial services.
There are. Yeah. I deliberately try not to use them, but you sometimes just slip in there, don't you?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. So I see there at that point you made a fairly large decision, monumental decision really, to up sticks, you and your family, and relocate to the Isle of Man. How did that come about?
True. So Basil Bielich, who you've had on this podcast before.
A very early episode actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
He would travel out to South Africa, and I would accompany him on some of the trips that he made around the country, just making introductions to him, to my network in the country. And it was through the contact that I had with Basil and the opportunities that he was coming across for himself personally, so outside of Atla Group, just kind of on the venture capital side and the private equity and the investments that he was getting exposed to and the network that he was getting exposed to through what he was doing, that it kind of got my mind ticking about trying to get closer to the action. So access to very interesting entrepreneurs, not necessarily based on the Isle of Man, but guys that are the Isle of Man was the hub, and these people were all over the world that he had access to. And we had a 1-year-old at the time, so timing wise it was let's do it, let's go on this adventure. We can get closer to the action, we can see what it's all about, and if we like.
The kids haven't made ties yet.
They don't have those social circles, and it just will be harder if we wait. So that was what inspired the move. And so we arrived in May 2018 to quite a good summer, as I recall, and It's not like this year, but it was.
It's had moments.
I think I'm still acclimatizing. I used to get teased.
Well, you've definitely got the cultural British thing of talking about the weather all the time. So.
Yeah, true. So it was that inspired the move, and I'd been across in 2016 for a look-see, and I'd spent some time at what was then Brown Crane and Peregrine Corporate Services. So this is pre the rebrand to Atla Group and pre the merger with Harding Lewis and Fidelta Pensions. And
sure, but you didn't come over to join.
No,
Atla. You came over to join telecoms.
Well, my because we had a 1-year-old, my wife, she does social media marketing and brand strategy, and she had a number of clients. And to cut a long story short, she wanted to remain self-employed. Yeah. And I needed to, because I'm on a South African passport, I needed to wait for her to get her work permit before I could apply for a work permit. Yeah. Before I could apply for a job.
Right. Okay.
So
how was that process?
The process wasn't difficult at all. I think I was probably quite lucky. We obviously looked at what the unemployment rate was on the Isle of Man at the time, and it was incredibly low. Yeah. So I had a bit of a run rate, and we just said, well, let's just go. I'm pretty sure I'll find a something, a job to land in. Yeah. So we arrived. I think it was the 6th of May, and I started with Shaw on the 11th of June. So it only took a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's amazing.
I'd put some feelers out, of course.
Yeah, of course. And how did you do that? Through
some recruiters, and I'd had conversations with a couple of the recruiters. I'd had conversations with some of the relocation specialists. A lot of it was, look, once you're here, kind of, we can help. Yeah. There wasn't a lot of, and this is still the case, a lot of people don't help with that pre-move aspect, and people need to find out about visa processes and what eligibility they have and all that still. Yeah. So it's it's not straightforward. We kind of talk about on the island about shortage of skills. It's not, I don't know if we need to maybe try and help with that initial step of visas and access into the island first.
Sounds like a checklist.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit to do.
From someone who's been through it.
Yeah, look, I had a soft landing, and my wife, she has an Irish passport, and that made it a lot easier. Okay. Yeah, if people are coming across and they just say 2 South African passport holders, it's probably a different story. But yeah, we had a soft landing. Mm-hmm. My wife was able to get her work permit fairly quickly. We got all our NI and tax number and all that. I mean, we're still blown away by how efficient the postal services here and how efficient the government services are. So, for example, I wrote this knowledge of life test yesterday morning, and when I dropped my daughter at home just now, there was this letter waiting saying that I'd met the requirements and I could go collect my certificate within a day, which is just mind-blowing, because in South Africa that would take months. So we'll have to cut that out, because I don't want to bash South Africa at all. But I think maybe we take for granted how efficient some of these systems are on the Isle of Man.
Well, that's the whole point of the podcast, to be honest with you. It's so easy, and the negative voices are the ones that are amplified, whereas positive voices generally are silent because you're happy. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that to the fore.
I think, it's... people ask, why are you living in the Isle of Man? What's the attraction? What's the allure? What's the... and it's got so many pros compared to the cons. Yeah. People in the first world do tend to complain about first world problems a lot more than maybe people in the third world. Yeah. So it's amusing when we hear on the radio, did anyone scratch a red car in Ramsey last night? And that's like the news article in the morning, and you go, is this for real? Yeah.
Or a story that's not a story.
It's kind of
that's sensationalized. Yeah.
It's you know it because you want to promote the positive, and people tend to focus and hone in on the negative. Yeah.
That's what the news stands for, isn't it? The Negative Events World Service.
Yeah. Yeah. So, things like being able to get that letter today within a day, and it was done through the postal service, which is non-existent in some countries. Yeah. Was amazing. And going to immigration on the Isle of Man. You go in, there's no queue, and you ring a bell, and someone comes to see you. That's absolutely mind-blowing.
So what does that give you? An Isle of Man passport if you want one?
No, so it's this gives me kind of right to remain or
right of abode.
Yeah, so there's a process I still need to go through, which doing this knowledge of life test enables me to start the process or put the application in.
Right. It's fascinating.
So
I've never obviously been through it, being Manx-born myself, but yeah, it's an interesting process.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of interesting questions in that test as well.
Do you have a blog about it?
I don't. I should.
Probably. Be good for, someone wants to read an article on, how would I do this? Well, this is how I did it. I don't know, just an idea.
We started a business called Destination Isle of Man soon after I arrived, which was exactly to do this type of thing and help people with anywhere where we bumped our heads. And but yeah, we've been busy and I haven't really focused much time there.
No, it's funny because when we publish blogs and articles and stuff, but by far the ones that are read the most are the ones with stories, people's stories, brought to life. No one wants to read a bunch of facts. They want to read about someone. We all want to know another person's story.
Yeah.
What am I telling you for? You're a marketer.
No, you're right. And but there's I think it's a lot easier moving to the Isle of Man. Not having any experience of moving elsewhere. I think that just the access and being able to go to a government department and know that you're going to speak to the right person. Doing my work permit, I got to meet Tina Thomas in the work permits office, and it was lovely. We'd chat about what she did during lockdown, and then the following year when I go do my renewal, it's like, hey Tina, how's your garden? How's it looking? And it's just you can't complain about how
nice.
That kind of stuff. It is nice.
Yeah.
It is nice. So that was probably leading into the time that I spent in telecoms over the last
so
few years.
For 2 years and then telecom for 3 years.
So I didn't have a telecoms background, but Shaw struck me as being more of a tech IT company. They were the challenger, so it was attractive, and the role was essentially account management, which is what I've done most, pretty much my whole career. Meeting with the clients, taking it back to the engine room. This is the brief. This is what they need, and then going back out to the clients.
I like particularly in here, you're the voice of your client.
Yeah.
Within the company. Yeah.
That's right. So, and being able to, take what the client needs and then communicate it to the tech team who communicate differently, as it's that kind of, I think only moving into financial services have I valued the skill set that I have in how I engage with people and the relationships I'm able to create and the messaging that I'm able to convey. I think when you're just a people's person and you're able to communicate and connect with people, you probably just think it's normal and natural.
But do you think coming from a different sector or many different sectors, has that sort of given you a different or a fresh perspective on landing in financial services?
Absolutely. Down to things like how do you brief a team and how do you follow that brief through. So in the ad world, it's all about the brief. What information in is the quality of that information in is the quality of the output.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Spot on. So applying, I'm kind of doing it with the role that I'm performing at Atla.
So how long have you been there?
I joined at the beginning of this year.
Right, okay.
I started 1st of Feb, and my first week in the job was a trip out to South Africa. It was maybe to take a step back, kind of just want to talk a bit more around on Island, the work that I did on Island. Because anybody moving to the Isle of Man, I would... while you need a thick skin working in telecoms, I think it's a tough game because, for 99.9% of the year when your home broadband works, no one moans. The minute it's down for 10 minutes, it's the end of the world and you are terrible and your service is awful and all
shocking.
The rest of it.
Hang your head in shame.
So I have a lot more empathy for telecoms, having worked in telecoms. Prior to coming to the Isle of Man, it was as frustrating as anyone could, who hasn't worked in telecoms, to deal with telecoms. In South Africa, you're dealing with MTN, for example, who has 40 million customers. And so if you phone a customer care line to get through to MTN, you're going to have a lot longer wait than phoning Manx Telecom or Shaw on the island. And you're probably not going to have your issue resolved. So I think, yeah, definitely I'd say I have a lot more empathy for that sector, having worked in it.
Yeah.
But the value in working in local telecoms was understanding the people of the Isle of Man. Because I was doing B2B, I was calling on businesses and people across the island and a variety of sectors, really enabled me to see what was happening on the ground here. The very unique businesses that were set up here, perhaps the reasons they were set up here. So, guys with IP in the mining sector, for example, living on a small holding somewhere on the island, and then, to your local kind of just your normal day-to-day service providers, you get to get a glimpse into everyone who was living here, the different businesses that were based here, but also the cultural nuances and how people like to do business. So my impression was that it's a very non-confrontational way of engaging. People they would prefer to have a long chat and a couple minutes at the end to discuss, the nitty-gritty around the business. It's all relationship based. It's a tough sell if you don't have that relationship. There are a lot of people here, they've built up these relationships from growing up on the Isle of Man and going through school together. And so as an outsider, it's tricky because you say to somebody, here's the offer, and they say, that's great, I'm going to sign that order form and I'm going to send it to you tomorrow. And the next day they're walking out the door of your competitor just because they didn't really want to tell you that this isn't going to happen. So yeah, perhaps we will need to word that differently in the edit, but I think it's a nice culture to do business in. It's
fine.
Yeah,
it's seriously fine, Lyle. I wouldn't worry about it. You haven't said anything at all derogatory there. No. So it's a nice. It's
a friendly way to do business.
Yeah.
People get stuff done, but it's done in a nice way. And yes, you have tricky characters like you have anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, just understanding that, and then just also seeing how patriotic a nation the Isle of Man is, and
yeah, we are, aren't we? Very patriotic.
Yeah,
that flag. Wow.
Yeah, it's but it's great, and I think anyone looking to move to the Isle of Man or set up shop here, or set up a business here, they need to spend some time understanding the culture. Again, because you need to understand the place you're going to be doing business in.
Yeah, sure.
And that's why I also think that the Isle of Man is not for everybody.
Yeah, no, we'll come to that if that's okay. We're gonna go down a bit further than that. So, if those are good points about telecoms there, but let's move on to how did you come to get the job at Atla?
So having seen the growth of Atla, having been keeping an eye on the rebrand and going from 30 people to over 100 people, in the space of a couple of years through some mergers and acquisitions. Two things. One was I'm on this island in the middle of the Irish Sea with this big network of contacts in South Africa, and working locally, I can't leverage that network at all. There's no value that I can add to that network that I built up over 20, 30, years, and those relationships have some value, especially when you talk about financial services and you talk about your trustee services and what is it all based on trust. So the strength of my relationships are with that network that I have in South Africa. Yes, I built a network on the Isle of Man, but that's new. It's only 5 years old. So I was looking for a way of connecting the two.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and also how do I add value to the Isle of Man? What I'd like to live here. I'd like my kids to grow up here, and want to call this home. So how do I find this reason to transact or create a reason to be back and forth with South Africa and continue to leverage that network? So that was the one aspect, and it was also looking at Atla and seeing what they've done, bringing these different businesses together. So I pitched the role to them as a business development manager role, and said that you're now at 100 people, and while you may not be ready for new business, you need to make sure that your pipeline is full because you have this big overhead, and we want to continue. If you want to continue growing the business, here are a number of ways that I could add some value. So I know it's a kind of long conversion process. If you don't meet someone today and they're signing up, a new company tomorrow, it takes a while. So part of the role is internal, looking at the group and how do we define our DNA? What is our culture? What does it mean to be a part of ATLA? What is the ATLA way? So a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is on the culture and the people side of the business, because the culture and the principles that we outline of this is ATLA will become our decision-making framework. Yeah. I came to work for ATLA primarily on the fiduciary side of the business, because of the role that I pitched them, and also because of my network in South Africa and our strong ties with the country. Yeah. We've David Crane, who's one of the co-founders of the business. He started going out to South Africa in the late 80s. And my wife's grandfather actually met him on one of those early road shows. So we've known of the Isle of Man for a long time because of that early connection. Yeah. And I've been out twice this year already. I'm going back out in November as part of the Isle of Man in Durban. So we go out with a number of other CSPs and Isle of Man companies to go and promote the Isle of Man in South Africa. That's kind of how I landed.
Oh, brilliant!
At ATLA.
Yeah, that sounds really resourceful. Yeah, well done for doing that. That's I'm sure that will bear great fruit for them in future years if it hasn't started to do so already. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I do know some of the directors through work and just having been here for a few years, so it wasn't a cold male situation. There was a bit of history, and I have a side hustle, if you like, where ATLA are a service provider as well. So,
and you still have desks to sell that patent.
I still have desks to move. That's right.
Oh no, wonderful. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you. So, how was money for you growing up? I mean, we've talked a little bit about maxing out on credit cards, which for any listener who is don't do that. It's really, there must be another way. So how was money? What's your earliest memory of it? Put it that way.
So difficult to put a finger on it. My grandfather and his wife lived in London, and every birthday they would send a couple of pounds out. So I'd say one of my earliest memories is looking forward to receiving £5 or £10, whatever it was each year. Yeah, sure. I think back then it was probably close, maybe 2 to 1, and now it's 24 to 1. But it was still like this big deal to receive these pounds. My dad is quite conservative, and he's always on it. Me and my brothers about you're putting away for your into your RA, and he made sure that as we started work, we kind of signed up for an RA in South Africa. It was very important for him. He was kind of from that school of thought that you go to school, you get your degree, you start working, you put away for your retirement.
You learn, you earn, and you adjourn, right? Yeah.
So, and also, we never wanted for anything growing up, but we didn't live an extravagant lifestyle at all. Our holidays were going up the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal, places like Cape Vidal and other places, which a lot of the Durbanites on the Isle of Man will know about. But we'd go to Mozambique, which was just over the border. We didn't do overseas holidays and things like that. It was only kind of when I went to high school that I saw maybe how other people were living. We used to, not that it was a bad thing, we would just say buy a slab of chocolate and share a slab of chocolate. And then I got to high school, and a friend of mine, they each had their own slab of chocolate at home. I'm like, what is happening here? I think it's I think I'm perhaps still trying to shake the fixed mindset mentality around that there is it's a scarce resource, versus people who see it as an abundant resource, and that it's just a means of exchange, and there's that balance, and going
you said it, it's the balance, isn't it? I mean, it's not in money's nature to ever be enough. That's the point. So it was
I would say, conservative approach, which is, it can be limiting if it's a concern, so, and the reason for the credit card was just really because I didn't want to borrow from my dad.
It's all paid back now, right?
It's all done.
Well done. No, that's cool. So, of all the things you've done so far in your young life, what's given you the most fulfillment?
It's I would say the relationships that I have with my family, my friends, is probably the most fulfilling thing that I have.
Sure.
I've done some fun things. I've done some interesting things.
But in business too, what would that be? Would it have to be the KLEvR Desk?
I think the KLEvR Desk, and being able to, I've got a couple of pics of these kids on these desks, and it was that sense of ownership. This was the first, perhaps one of the first items that was theirs, that they owned. It was only theirs, not for big brother or sister. This was their desk, and
that's wonderful. Very
fulfilling time. So we really wanted to find a way to do good and earn money at the same time.
Sure.
So it wasn't all about philanthropy, and it wasn't all about how do we give back. We also wanted to be an example of you can do good and you can come up with innovative solutions, but you can still make a living. But entrepreneurship is tough. And
it sure is.
Yeah,
it sure is. So next question is, what's your number one tip for aspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, community leaders? What would it be? I guess from an entrepreneur angle, really, because you've been one a few times, huh?
Yeah, again, I don't think I talk from a background of knowing the answers to these things. I would probably say just be kind or be a good person. I do believe that, what goes around comes around, and also just to back yourself. I'm often sending the YouTube clip on Carl Sagan's pale blue dot. So when my mom's stressed, I'll send that to her, or a friend, or I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't.
So I'll send it to you. But
thank you. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a great way to get some perspective.
Yeah.
If you're going through anxiety or a tough time, it kind of zooms out on the world.
I have seen it. Yes, I have.
Yeah. It kind of leads to about, on this blue dot is where all your relationships you've ever had are found. Everyone you've ever known has lived and died on this one little speck of dust.
Yeah, I know.
And so while, I probably need to take some of my own advice, and that is to back yourself. Use the resources you have, use the tools you have. Don't let fear get in the way of trying something new.
Yeah.
It is easier said than done.
Well, we're all a work in progress, aren't we?
True.
So what do you do to relax? Talking of that. So
I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So life is chaotic. It's
wonderful age though.
It is so cute. I'm absolutely loving this time, and would love to push the brakes and just keep them at this age. So it can be quite full on. Certainly mornings and evenings are full on. But yeah, to relax, I play golf. I go mountain biking on the Isle of Man. It's a beautiful place.
What's your favourite track?
I sometimes, because I live up north, I'll either ride Sky Hill, or I've just got a loop that I do past the reservoir.
Are you a downhill freak or
no? I like cross country, and just I do it to be fit.
Those Sky Hill tracks coming down. Have you gone down through the trees? I walked them. They were insane.
Yeah, no, I
could hardly remain on my feet, let alone on a bike.
No, I'm keen to look after my collarbones, and I don't don't necessarily want to be flying downhill.
Sure.
But yeah, there's also a ride from Laxey, I don't know what it's called, where you come out of the Glen Mona.
Yeah. Pub, okay. Yes, I know. Yeah.
Which is that's quite tricky coming down, but doing the up is a cool ride.
Fantastic.
And it's beautifully scenic.
We live in the middle of the island, so probably to bring the bike rack and go from north and back.
Yeah. We are part of a crew that I haven't ridden with them for a while, just because as my kids have got older, the activities have taken over. But we've done some beautiful rides all over the island.
Oh, fantastic! It's a wonderful way to see it, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah, and besides that, I've joined Prime Performance Gym in Douglas, which is great, really neat, clean, got all the facilities, but they've also got a sauna there. So if days where I don't feel like training, or if I'm injured and taking time off training, I'll just go do.
You're still going to need a shower after one of those.
Sauna, yeah, exactly. Sauna, cold shower, works wonders.
Yeah, there's some good gyms over here actually.
Yeah,
if we're promoting the Isle of Man,
yeah. There's a
new one coming up at near B&Q, isn't there?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
But living on the Isle of Man, it's difficult to explain to people the kind of stress-free environment that we live in.
Yes.
That when you land and you feel like you're on holiday, even if you've come off a work trip, it's just that sense of relaxation.
So we just talked about the best things about living in the Isle of Man. There's a lot of them, right?
There are, daily commute is just a pleasure. I mean, it's so beautiful.
Ramsey to Douglas. Wow.
So far, isn't it? But it gives me just enough time to listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook.
Yeah, fabulous.
Or, so it kind of 25 minutes of downtime is fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have it good.
We do.
There's no such thing as traffic, really.
Okay, so main challenges
for
the Isle of Man.
For the Isle of Man. I think it's. I talked to a number of people about. It feels like there are a lot of people pulling in the right direction. I think getting enough people across to fill the skills gaps, where we need people is a challenge, and how we approach that is going to be important.
Sounds like it's your job.
Yeah, we'd love to get more people across, but again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a shotgun approach. I think if we can get more people that we know will fit into the lifestyle and come here and stay, that's our, we've got to find who our person is, who are our people, how would they like to live?
Mm-hmm.
Like in business where you're looking for a target audience or target client, what's your ideal candidate? Because just within my circle of friends, I know that we fit it in beautifully because we kind of like that more quiet, relaxed lifestyle. We don't need the hustle and the bustle.
People normally love it with young families too, because of the
safety, security, the activities that for kids, it's numerous. So as parents, it's a breeze. There's always something to do, whether it's park, beach.
Yeah, not so much when they get a bit older.
And again, I don't know that's for me. And again, I don't have.
Unless they're into sport. If they're into sport, fantastic. But
Well, I think there's part of the answer is I wouldn't worry too much about the nightlife and things like that. Let's double down on what makes us great, what the outdoor lifestyle, the sporty, active lifestyle. Let's make sure we've got those types of facilities. I know youngsters here who would prefer to go to CrossFit on a Saturday morning than go out on Friday night. Is that perhaps who we're looking for rather?
It looks like it.
Yeah, and don't worry about. We don't have the nightlife and we don't have this. Well, do we need it? I'm probably going to get hate speech for some comments like that.
No, you've only got 6-year-olds so far. Give it 10 years.
Yeah, true. But for me, it's not the worst thing if my kids go off and study in London or go and build a network elsewhere, and hopefully they'll come back here when the time is right.
Yeah, sure.
But yes, they're challenges, but I don't believe they insurmountable or too great.
No.
People moan about travel. I haven't had too many issues personally, but
you have to be really unlucky.
Yeah, I think you do, and it's the same anywhere. I used to travel regularly for work in South Africa, and I'd have similar issues with delayed planes and things like that. So
first world problems.
Yeah.
Can be expensive, unfortunately, but yeah,
it's expensive, but I think we benefit in other ways. It's not. I think the challenge is to find the right number of people for the Isle of Man, and find the right people. Yeah. And have the attractions for those people that you're trying to attract. Yeah. So if it's paddle courts or facilities
So is there anything that you can see that we could do differently, or you've thought of why don't we do this as a sort of an opportunity?
Yeah, it's a good question because. I'm certainly not moaning about what we have already. But I think it's perhaps thinking about exactly like we've spoken about, if this is a fantastic place for young families, well, do we have facilities where young families can go? There aren't many places where you could go. Let's say my wife could go where she could work while my child was playing in a safe space.
Oh yeah. So I heard on what's the podcast? Seth McGovern and the rest is money. The rest is politics. The rest is money. There's a new podcast, and they said that Steph McGovern's got a side hustle. I don't know if you know who she is. She used to be a news business correspondent for the BBC, from the northeast of England. So an accent like you, but not like you. And she said that her side hustle is slime, because you can go to a shopping mall. A lot of the shopping malls that you have these days, they have things for kids to do. I mean, this Timwell Mills here used to have that, like an art studio, and you just put your kids there and you go shopping for an hour.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing to create slime. Have your kids wanted to make slime in your kitchen yet?
Yeah, that kids have.
That makes a mess. Makes a mess. So if you can give it to someone else to do and have a nice morning.
I think it's probably doubling down on what we really are good at and what our greatest offerings are and what our people here tend to like to do the most.
Yeah.
And the active lifestyle thing for me is key. If we go down that route and make sure that we have facilities for people to do any new sport that comes along.
Crash at the gym. There you go.
I swear it would be a game changer.
It would, wouldn't it?
But yeah, there's these are things that my wife and I are looking at as business opportunities as well.
Yeah.
Because there are enough passionate people here on the island that want to invest in these things. Yes, it can be a challenge for them as well, and I'd hate to be in property development and trying to get plans approved. It's not straightforward, but hopefully we get people here that can persevere.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think we've got some ideas there between us, haven't we? Brilliant. Yep. So what have you got planned next?
I'm really excited about this role with Atla.
Yeah.
It's we've got a fantastic brand, a powerful brand that can lead kind of the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
We've got great people and a great management team, and I think we've got the recipe for something that's going to be really impactful.
Yeah.
So career-wise and work-wise, this is I'm going to be out in South Africa probably 3 to 4 times a year. We're looking at other jurisdictions that we can start visiting as well.
Okay.
And
can you say yet, or is that still to be?
It's probably still early to chat about which we're looking at, but it's not something we're not discussing with other CSPs and financial services firms. It's just we're not sure yet exactly where which we'll pick to go and commit to. So we want to continue to build the business and attract the right people that fit within our culture, and promote the Isle of Man when we are out in South Africa. Jersey and Guernsey they have people on the ground down there. They have offices there, and we really need to make sure we are relevant and people are considering the Isle of Man as a jurisdiction.
Yeah.
A lot of South Africans I speak to are, hey, I'm looking at Mauritius and I'm looking at Dubai and what about the Channel Islands and what's the Isle of Man about, So I think it's on all of us in that space to make sure we shouting about the benefits of the Isle of Man as a jurisdiction.
For sure. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, that sounds really exciting. So looking forward to hearing more and be watching you closely.
Thanks.
Just as a final sort of wrap up, really, what about books and that you've read recently that inspire you, or podcasts that you've listened to? What are they?
Of the book that I'm currently reading, it's called The Creative Process by Rick Rubin.
Right. Okay.
And so Rick Rubin is a music producer. It's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. So that's the book I'm reading at the moment. And
do you listen to it on Audible then, or?
This one I'm reading.
Right.
I do like listening to books on Audible, but at night I tend to try and do the reading piece to keep me off my phone. So
how many pages do you manage before you drop off?
It's 10 to 20 is fine.
Really?
Yeah. Some days I'll just
must be a good book.
Couple of minutes.
I'm 2 pages.
Yeah. No. I think you'll really enjoy it just because of yes, you very involved in the financial sector, but this is all creative, but it's all applicable and it applies to how we do everything. But he's a fascinating character. He's worked with some of the biggest bands in the world, and the podcast, how I got introduced to Rick Rubin was through the Tim Ferriss podcast. So, the 4-Hour Body, the 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Chef
Tim Ferriss.
author.
He's great.
And but there's also Ryan Holiday, the Daily Stoic. I don't know if you've
I love the Daily Stoic.
So also listen to Ryan Holiday's podcast. I haven't had a huge amount of time lately to listen to the podcast, but there's always something. I love Tim Ferriss's podcast because he interviews the most interesting people all over the world. But Rick Rubin, so the first podcast they did was in a Rick Rubin's sauna, so they're going between the sauna and a cold plunge, and they're doing this podcast recording. So there's an idea.
So you can hear the shrieks. It's funny. I have a sauna.
Oh, nice. Yeah. There's I don't know if you've seen like these pop-up saunas. So there's the one down at Port Erin.
I have.
There was this last weekend I was at Laxey, and there's a guy who set up the sauna on Laxey Beach.
They're trying to do it at Peel as well, aren't they?
I believe so.
For all the swimmers. Okay.
Which I think is super cool. That's a differentiator for us. Make sure we got one at each beach.
It's far more cool than having I don't know, ice cream store or something.
And it was
there's room for that too, obviously.
All about balance, as we said. So I think the creative act, I think you'll enjoy that.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. And so who inspires you?
I would say at the moment my kids are my main inspiration. There's people say that your first child raises you and then you raise your second child, kind of thing. Parenting is difficult. It's full on, and I'd say I'm probably most inspired by my kids and my wife because I want to be the best version I can be for them. There is inspiration everywhere. It can be inspiration overload when you're listening to podcast after podcast, and you're going down the rabbit holes that Tim Ferriss sends you on, and I'm sure that I'll find through listening to your podcast as well. But I think coming back to it, it's probably the family.
That's lovely. Thank you. And do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share?
I have a number of these quotes that I have that pop up on my reminders. So it was difficult to find a favorite one. But if I had to choose, maybe I'll just rattle off a couple. But one of the ones is "What one can be, one must be" by Abraham Maslow. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm, which was Winston Churchill. James Cameron said, "Hope is not a strategy, luck is not a factor, fear is not an option," which can be inspiring. So, there's a number of kind of quotes that I've used in the past for
it's important, isn't it?
And at different times.
I know. I've got a bunch of them written at the front of my notebook for exactly the same reason. Which one is appropriate to me today? Oh, that one. Or the Daily Stoic. I mean, there's some great stuff in there too.
So that email that comes through once a day, and try and to be disciplined enough to read it once a day. But I'm sure you find it as well, that when you read, when you listen, when you meet people, it's often, I find that if I've read something, I might need that context or that content almost soon after it, when in a conversation.
It's funny, isn't it?
There's always a time or a link.
I find that.
So I think it's down to just listening, because for some reason that content has been delivered your way.
Serendipitously.
So
wonderful.
It's funny on the Isle of Man. Just one quick thing is, I'll meet somebody, like I've just met you today for the first time. And I tend to see that person, if I've met them for the first time, I'll see them the next day or like soon after meeting them, which is also, I think, quite amusing or serendipitous. But it's just funny because perhaps it's just that you haven't met them, but you're crossing paths all the time.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, you never know. My mum's in Ramsey, so there you go.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, look, that's really wonderful. So we will put where people can go and learn all about you in the show notes, but LinkedIn, Twitter, fantastic. We'll put all that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much. It's been really enjoyable meeting you today and learning all about you and what makes you tick. So thanks so much for sharing it and for coming along.
Well, thanks very much for having me on your podcast, Sharon. And I really appreciate the time. And probably just to end off to say that, we proudly, really proud to live on Isle of Man and kind of continue to promote it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening this far. I hope you found this episode to be valuable. If so, I'd like to ask you for a small favour. Would you please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, because that's one of the best ways for others to find the series, and please send a link to the podcast to 3 friends or colleagues who know they'll find it helpful. That way we can spread the word about how great a place the Isle of Man is to live and work, and help spread some positivity. Thanks again for tuning in and being part of our great community. I'll see you next time. Island Influencers is a fortnightly podcast. Make sure you don't miss the next episode by clicking the follow button on your podcast platform. A big thanks to the producer Catherine Watts from Social Cues and editor Martin Bamford at Bear Content, and thank you for listening.